It is day 2 of Derek Chauvin's murder trial in Minneapolis. The former police officer is facing charges over the killing of unarmed black man George Floyd in May last year. This is a high-stakes trial for the United States, what many have called a battle for the soul of America. Remember, Floyd's murder had triggered a wave of anti-racism protests that snowballed into a global Black Lives Matter movement. The proceedings on the second day began with Donald Williams on the stand. He is a mixed martial arts fighter who witnessed the murder of George Floyd. Williams said he called 911 because he believed he was witnessing a murder. He called Chauvin's knee on the neck a wrestling move used to knock out someone.
Paramedics loaded Mr. Floyd into the ambulance. Were you still there at the scene? Paramedics loaded Mr. Floyd into the ambulance. Were you still there at the scene?
That is correct.
All right. At some point, did you make a 911 call?
That is correct. I did call the police on the police.
All right. And why did you do that?
Because I believe I witnessed a murder. You could see that he was going through tremendous pain, and you could see it in his face from the grunting. You could see his eyes slowly, rolling back in his head, and him having his mouth open, wide open, slowly with drool.
The prosecutors played back Williams' 911 call on the 25th of May. He can be heard telling the dispatcher that Floyd is in considerable pain. Williams was visibly emotional in the courtroom as the tape rolled, at one point wiping away his tears. Outside the court, sentiments ran high as well. The National Guard had to be deployed to keep the situation under control.
Now, is this
Our correspondent Susan Teherani joining us from New York for more on this. Susan, take us to the key takeaways from day 2 of the proceedings so far, and tell us more about the timeline that has been set for this trial.
This trial is going to continue for about 4 weeks. That's what we've been told, although it could take longer, or as we saw in the jury selection, it could go faster than anticipated. Day 2, we will be seeing more witnesses come forth. As you mentioned, we saw one of the key witnesses who, after prosecutors got the go-ahead from the court to be able to verify him and confirm him as a mixed martial art expert, they brought him to the stand for questioning. The reason this was very important was because of his background on the one hand and his close proximity to the incident on the other. Another issue that we saw, which was somewhat unprecedented, was we saw witnesses that were minors at the time on the scene come on the stand and say what they saw happen during that day in May of last year. And what's happening right now is very clear that really the case is being tilted towards the prosecutor's side, and the only way perhaps that maybe the defense has the ability to make a case on the part of Derek Chauvin is to maybe call him for witness on the stands, as perhaps the only witness can defend him, that can defend himself at this point of a person being on the scene. So we'll see how that develops, but for the time being, the prosecutor has been very adamant on calling these first-hand witnesses to really tell their account and what they saw at that point in time. And then we also see the defense cross-examining and questioning how they treated law enforcement during that time, and somewhat trying to demonstrate that these individuals were very emotional at the time, and maybe poking holes in their testimony somewhat.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.